Hello, Newa here. Welcome to another tutorial. Today we are making this fuzzy cozy sweater. This is a size medium with extra 4 inches, hence baggy. I used approximately 1,350 meters or 1,476 yards of this nylon yarn, which is bulky weight number 5. There is a written pattern available for purchase, which comes in sizes extra small to 3XL. I have the link in the description below. Let's have fun, guys. Let's talk about the materials we're gonna need for our hoodie. I'll be using this fuzzy yarn. It's called Feels Like a Dream. It is a bulky weight yarn number 5. It recommends 6mm hook, and this is 100% nylon. And I have 6mm hook, which will be used for the panels and the sleeves, and then we've got 4mm hook for the cuffs and the ribbing at the bottom. You need a tape measure, locking stitch markers, pair of scissors, and yarn needle. We're gonna start with half double crochet foundation chain. For the size that I'm making, it's size medium, and I need 74 of the foundation chains. So we're gonna start with a slip knot and then chain 2. I don't know if it's very clear on in the video, but when I look at it with the naked eye, I can see stitches. So I'm going to make the second foundation chain. So do the size or the half of your bust size with extra few inches to make it oversized. For me, I am 38 inches on my bust size, and then I added extra 4 inches. Make the chains, and we will meet on the second row. I am done with my foundation chain. This is very easy. We are using half double crochet. I'm going to chain 2 and turn, and then on the first stitch I'm making a half double crochet. And this is the stitch we are using throughout the pattern for the sleeves and the panels. And for this panel, which is my back panel, I want it to be 22 inches long. You get to decide on how long or short you want yours to be. So work the panel on your end until you have your desired length. This is the last stitch for my back panel. It is 58 rows and it measures 21 inches. That's how long it is. Okay, I'm just gonna cut the yarn. Actually, I'm gonna leave a bit of a long tail to seam to the front panel later, and I'm gonna fasten off. Okay, let's move on to the front panel. We are repeating the same thing that we did for the back panel. So I'm gonna start with a slip knot and make the same number of stitches you did on your back panel. We're still doing the foundation half double crochet. The foundation chain is done. I'm gonna chain 2 and turn the work. Repeat what we did in the back panel, half double crochet throughout. For the front panel, you are going to end with, when you are only left with 4 inches until you reach your total height. So you will put your front panel against your back panel and measure. When you reach that height where you have 4 inches left, 4 inches or 10 centimeters, then you stop, because that's where we are going to create a neckline and we will later add a hoodie for our sweater. So work on your panel, keep measuring it against the back panel, and when you have 4 inches left, you wait, and then we continue with the tutorial. I have reached the mark that I mentioned at the beginning. My front panel right now measures 17 inches. I put it against my back panel, which is 21, so I'm left with 4 inches. Okay, I am going to work on few rows. So here's what's gonna happen. My back panel is 58 rows. I'm going to work on the rows until I have only 4 rows left to be matched to the back panel. So I'm going to work until I have 54 rows. Then we get to divide our panel into the shoulder and then the neck opening for our hoodie. I hope that makes sense. Okay, it's too steep for me to say we'll have or it's too deep for me to say we'll have the neck opening. So I'm going to work a few more rows until I'm only left with 4 to match the back panel. So I'm going to work until row 54 on my end. You get to calculate on your side. So add few more rows until you are left with just 4. It's time to divide our front panel and create a neck panel. Across my panel I have 74 stitches. So I have put a stitch marker here already, so I have 25. I'm going to count 25 from the edge towards the center as well, so I have equal number of stitches. And this is my 25th stitch, so which means I have 24 stitches here, 25, 25, and then 24, because I have 74 all in all. And my neck opening measures 7 inches. If you wanted a wider neck opening, all you need to do is make sure you have equal number of stitches per side. So if you want 8, for example, you move your stitch marker maybe 2 or 1 more on either side, so you have equal number of stitches. That's always important because we need the center of the you don't want a crooked shoulder. Okay, so I have 2 more rows to work, but I only end at the stitch marker. Oh, I'm going to turn my work on my stitch marker. I'm gonna chain 2 and then continue with the pattern. First row for shoulder 1 is done. I've reached the stitch marker. I'm gonna chain 2 and 10. I'm gonna repeat this row. We're only working with 2 rows here. Okay, I'm going to repeat this until I reach the end. Okay, this is the end of shoulder 1. just gonna double the length of the shoulder, cut the yarn and fasten off. Okay, we are moving on to shoulder number 2. We are starting in the middle, go this way, and then end up on the inside. We are repeating shoulder number 1. Okay, so do that on your end, and then we will meet to move on to the next part of the tutorial. Let's start the few stitches of the second shoulder. Okay, I'm gonna insert the hook and then pull up a loop to start my row, and I'm going to chain 2, and then on the same spot do a half double crochet. Okay, and then we are going to, I'm just going to remove this, and repeat what we did on the first shoulder. We only need two rows. It's time to put our sweater together. So I have the front panel on top of the back panel. I have stitch markers here to secure them together and to also make sure I have the same number of stitches from both panels. Okay, so if you have 25 stitches, for example, within front panel, you count 25 stitches and have a stitch marker, so when you seam it's uniform, or you have the same number of stitches on each side. So I had left long tails on either side of the panel, and that's what I'm going to use to seam the panels together. I'm just going to turn it around, and then from here insert my needle on the first stitches, and then insert the needle on the second stitch and do the same on the front panel. So I'm gonna go work on these on either side. Okay, so seam your panels together. My project is big now and it's just sliding off my table. So work the shoulders on your end, then we will meet on the next part of the tutorial. It is time to make a sleeve. I have already made one here. We start from the armpits and then make decreases in the last 2 rows, and then move on to the the cuff. Okay, my sleeve altogether measures, let's see, 18.5 inches, and I think it's gonna be longer because this is very stretchy. Once I seam everything together, it's probably gonna feel, oh yeah, it's gonna be long. And then I left a long enough tail to seam our sleeve later. Okay, so for my size for the sleeve, I need 52 chains or stitches. I'm gonna start with a slip knot, and we are making a foundation half double crochet. This is my second chain, foundation chain. The third one. All right, so I'm gonna do this until I have 52 of these. My foundation chain is done for my sleeve. I'm gonna chain 2 and 10 and make a half double crochet on the first stitch and on each stitch from here on. I have 52 foundation chains, so I need to have 52 chains after this row, and I'm going to repeat this row until I reach row 36. So after row 36, we're going to have 2 rows where we are going to have some decreases for our sleeve before we get to the cuff. Decide how long you want your sleeve to be, and then you wait until we get to the decreasing part of the sleeve. It's time to decrease our sleeves, and the decrease is only going to happen in the next two rows. Great. I'm chaining 2 and 10. Gonna make a normal stitch, half double crochet here, and then decrease in the next 2 stitches. I'm gonna make 2 half double crochet stitches together, and that's my first decrease. The next stitch is just a normal half double crochet, and that's the pattern we're gonna follow. Normal stitch, the next decrease. next one normal stitch, next is decrease, and we are repeating this until end of the row. Right, the last stitch is a decrease, and there we have it. That's our first decrease. Gonna chain 2 and 10. This entire row you are decreasing, so you are making 2 half double crochet together from the beginning to the end of the row. The last stitches, and it has cinched the cuff, the sleeve. That's how it looks after the second row. Now we are moving on to making a cuff. We are moving on to this part of the sleeve, okay, and we need a smaller hook. We're going to switch to a 4mm and continue with our sleeve. Okay, I have my 4mm hook. From here I am chaining 11. It's just the continuation of the sleeve. We don't need to cut yarn or anything. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, and I'm just gonna turn just to make it easier for me to work with this, because it's getting heavier now. So the second, we're gonna insert the hook on the second chain from the hook. This is the first and that's the second, and we are making a single crochet, and we're gonna do that until we reach the end of the chain. And I'm going into the last one, so I should have 10 at the end of this row, okay, because we chained 11 and then did have, sorry, a single crochet stitch on the second chain. From here I am inserting the hook on that first gap, make a slip stitch, move on to the second stitch, the gap. This one is easier because the gaps are wide. Make another slip stitch and then gonna turn. Okay, and this is our first stitch. If you are not sure, just count so you have 10 in total. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, and this is the 10th one. Sometimes we, especially with a fuzzy yarn like this, it's very easy to miss a stitch, so it's always advisable to count your stitches so you have the same number of stitches and you'll have a straight cuff. 1, that's my first half double crochet, sorry, single crochet. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and into the last one, 10. So this is my second row. I'm going to chain 1 and 10, and that's basically what we are going to do until the end of the sleeve. So this is my first stitch, 1, and this is my 10th stitch. Okay, now this is where I last did my slip stitch, so I'm going to skip this and go into the next gap, and then go on to the next one, slip stitch, and turn your work. And we're going to repeat this, going back and forth. And then again, if you're a little bit confused, count your stitches: 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. Then you know where to start, because sometimes, because there's that gap here, we often get confused and then start here, which means you are increasing your cuff, so you're going to have an even number of stitches. This one is easy, just normal single crochet stitch. Okay, so repeat this on both of your sleeves, and we will meet at the end when you get here. Make sure you have a long enough tail so you can make, or you can seam your sleeve together later. Okay, so make 2 sleeves and we will meet up. Okay, I have my 4mm hook. From here I am chaining 11. It's just the continuation of the sleeve. We don't need to cut yarn or anything. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11. Okay, and I'm just gonna turn just to make it easier for me to work with this, because it's getting heavier now. So the second, we're gonna insert the hook on the second chain from the hook. This is the first and that's the second, and we are making a single crochet, and we're gonna do that until we reach the end of the chain. going into the last one. So I should have 10 at the end of this row, okay, because we changed 11 and then did have, sorry, a single crochet stitch on the second chain. From here I am inserting the hook on that first gap, make a slip stitch, move on to the second stitch, the gap. This one is easier because the gaps are wide. Make another slip stitch and then gonna turn, okay, and this is our first stitch. If you are not sure, just count so you have 10 in total. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, and this is the 10th one. Sometimes we, especially with a fuzzy yarn like this, it's very easy to miss a stitch, so it's always advisable to count your stitches so you have the same number of stitches and you'll have a straight cuff. 1, that's my first half double crochet, sorry, single crochet. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and into the last one, 10. So this is my second row. I'm going to chain 1 and 10, and that's basically what we are going to do until the end of the sleeve. So this is my first stitch, 1, and this is my 10th stitch. Okay, now this is where I last did my slip stitch, so I'm going to skip this and go into the next gap, and then go on to the next one, slip stitch, and turn your work. And we're going to repeat this, going back and forth. And then again, if you're a little bit confused, count your stitches: 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. Then you know where to start, because sometimes, because there's that gap here, we often get confused and then start here, which means you are increasing your cuff, so you're gonna have an even number of stitches. This one is easy, just normal single crochet stitch. Okay, so repeat this on both of your sleeves, and we will meet at the end when you get here. Make sure you have a long enough tail so you can make, or you can seam your sleeve together later. Okay, so make 2 sleeves and we will meet up. The cuff is done. I just need to have a long enough tail too, so I'm just going to double up the length of the sleeve before I cut the yarn and fasten off, because I'm going to use this tail to seam the sleeve together. Okay, I'm gonna fasten off now. It's time to seam our sleeve onto the back panels. I have a stitch marker here, which is the center of our sleeve. Okay, so for my sleeve I had like 52, sorry, so I got 26 stitches on either side, and then I'm going to put my stitch marker, attach the middle of the front and the back panel together, and I'm going to seam through, go through either side. My advice, try and count the rows from the stitch marker all the way to the end and make sure they match on either side. So if you have 20 rows on this side, make sure you have 20 rows on the front panel as well. All right, I have a long tail here, so I'm gonna seam my sleeve onto the panels. So from here I have 24 rows on either side, so I have equal amount of stitches on each side. I'm gonna double knot the edge just to secure the stitch. All right, and then I'm just gonna take this out of the way, and I'm gonna seam across. I'm using the same stitch I used for the panels together, or you are welcome to use whatever is comfortable for you to seam. Your stuff together. I'm inserting my needle on both of the loops or through the stitches, because if you just do through one, it normally leaves, like if I went through this one, it normally leaves a gap, and it does not look good when you are wearing it. So I'm gonna do this until I get to the end over here on both sides. Okay, so seam your sleeves onto the panels, and then we will move on to the next step of the tutorial. I'm done seaming the sleeves on the panels, and now it's time to seam the sleeve on its own and then the panels together. I have long enough tail that I think I'll be able to seam from the sleeve, go all the way down the it's too many long tails, down the panels. Okay, we are still using the same method we used for seaming the panels. It's just going back and forth in a zigzag form. And my yarn is not cooperating today. All right, so I'm gonna have the two sides to face each other, and then we're gonna start from the cuff, go all the way to the armpit area. I'm gonna look for the first stitch and insert the hook. Go back to the first stitch on the other side and bring them together. Okay, so the first stitches are aligned, and I'm going to go back and forth the same way we did the panels and the sleeve to the panels. Use the method you are comfortable with and seam your sleeve and down to the side. It's basically the same thing. There isn't anything different. It's very easy because you are just aligning the stitches together. All right, so seam your sleeve together. Go here when you reach the armpit. You align the rows as well, the back and the front panel, and go all the way down and do both sides. All right. Right, the cuff is done. Now I'm moving on to the sleeve. It is time to add a hoodie to our sweater. So I have a stitch marker here. What I did was I counted the stitches from one end to the next to the other, and then put my stitch marker in the middle. So here I have 21 stitches. I put it on the 11th, and I'm going to skip this stitch where the stitch marker is. I'm going to begin and end my stitches on the one next to the stitch marker. Okay, if you have even number of stitches for your neck opening, you can just start your stitches on the spot and end it on the spot as well, or you can still make a little gap of one stitch in between. Okay, so I'm going to attach the yarn. I'm going to join yarn, and chain one, and then on the same spot make a half double crochet stitch, and I'm going to go around the neck. So go around the neck and stop where your stitch marker is. Okay, so row one is done. Next you are going to do the same thing, chain 2, 10, and then make a half double crochet into each stitch. Okay, let's meet after end of this row. Okay, row 2 is done. Now it's time to move on to the next part of the tutorial. I want to increase the depth of our hoodie, meaning I want it to be deeper, so when you put it through your head, it doesn't come halfway through, it can go deeper or over your face. So we are going to have increases on where the stitch marker is. So what you need to do is count all the stitches around and then put a stitch marker right in the middle. I have 54 stitches around here, so I counted 27, so this is my 27th stitch, and when I get to the stitch marker I am making 2 stitches on one spot. Okay, I'm gonna chain 2 and work around. Okay, I have reached the stitch marker, and this is where I'm making 2 half double crochet stitches on one spot. I am increasing my rows, sorry, my stitches, and then I'm moving it up again so I don't lose count or where to have an increase. And then it's 1 stitch around until end of the row. Okay, so you're gonna work around 1 stitch, turn your work. When you get to the stitch marker again, you make 2 stitches on one spot, and you're gonna continue doing that until you have, like, your hoodie is probably 6 inches. Okay, we will meet when mine measures 6 inches, and then we'll see if I still want to keep increasing or if we should be done with the increases. I have reached a 5-inch mark, and the increase, I don't know if I can measure from here too. Okay, if I turn it around like this, this is the bottom of the neck, and it measures 5.5 inches. Okay, so this is still pretty shallow hoodie. I am going to add another 5 inches, or what you can do on your end is to keep adding and try it on to see how deep it is on you. Because we are going to continue making this increment until we get to a point where we will have just few rows of no increases before we close the top of our hoodie. I've reached the stitch marker, which means we are going to increase on this stitch. So here I am making 2 half double crochets on the same spot, and then I'm going to put a stitch marker to mark where my next 2 stitches are going to be in the next row. From here it's the same, half double crochet until end of the row, and then you chain 2, turn your work, 1 stitch on each until you reach the stitch marker. So I'm going to add another 4 inches while I am increasing here. Okay, so we will meet when the hoodie is about 10 inches when you measure it from the base of the neck. I have worked on my increases and I have 9.5 inches. Yeah, from here. From here on, we are not making any increases, and I want my whole hoodie to measure roughly 14 inches. So from here on, we are no longer increasing, we'll just be making a normal stitch. So if we have 100 stitches around here, then from here on you need to have 100 stitches until you have reached well, with me I need 5 inches to get to 14, but if you have 10, then you work rows until you reach 14 inches all in all. Okay, so I'm gonna chain 2 and 10, and then from here just make a half double crochet stitch on each stitch around. So we're gonna go back and forth until you have roughly 4 inches, or when you measure your hoodie from the base of the neck to the top, that it measures 14 inches. You are better off with a bigger hoodie than a small one. So if you wanted to add more rows after this, after you make 4 extra inches, then you are welcome to do so. Okay, I've reached a stitch marker. I do not need any increases anymore, so I'm just gonna pass through it and just work normal stitch. Alright, so from here on, no more increases. Work your half double crochet back and forth until you have roughly 14 inches from the base of the neck to the top of the hoodie. Okay, the hood is done. It measures, okay, let me put it this way. So this is the base of the neck and it measures 14 inches. Okay, and this is how deep I wanted my hood to be. If you wanted yours bigger, maybe you added more rows after your increases. So this is the 4 inches that I added after stopping our decreases. Now we are going to close our hoodie. First I need to cut the yarn. I'm just gonna double up the length of it and cut the yarn and fasten off. Okay, from here on we are going to fold it like this and then seam the top from bottom up. I have my yarn needle here. I'm just gonna put the yarn through the eye, align my end of the hood, and then we are using the same method that we did for seaming the panels together and the sleeves to the panels. I'm gonna go in from the bottom and out to the top. I'm inserting my needle on the top V of the stitch. Only few stitches left to close up our hoodie. I'm gonna double it up in here and then just weave in the end so it's nice and secure. And there we have it. Our hoodie is closed up. I'm just gonna cut my yarn here. And it is done. Gonna move on to adding the bottom ribbing for our sweater. It is time to add our bottom ribbing, and we are using the smaller hook, the 4mm hook, which is the same one we used for the sleeve cuffs. Okay, you're going to insert the hook on the edge and then join the yarn. Pull up a loop and chain 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then you are skipping the first chain. On the second chain you make a single crochet. The cuff is the same, well, it's like we are using the same stitch as we did for the sleeve cuff. It's just a single crochet stitch. This is the last one. We are making a slip stitch in the next 2 stitches. Okay, so this is where we did our inserted our hook, and this is the first slip stitch. And then this is the second stitch, and make a slip stitch, and then I am turning. I don't need a turning chain on this one. This is the first stitch, and I am making a single crochet stitch. And this is the second row. Chain 1 and 10, and we are making a single crochet on the first stitch and across. And then when we get to the panel, we make slip stitch in the next 2 stitches, and then 10. So this was the last place where we did our slip stitch, which means the first one is next to that. And then this is the next stitch, and make a slip stitch, and then you chain. So you repeat these 2 rows. You go around the front and the back panel. So work the bottom cuff around, and we will meet at the end here so we can seam it together. Okay, my bottom ribbing is done. Now I'm going to show you one way to put this together. So you align both ends together and make a slip stitch along. We are going to have a kangaroo pocket. So if you use this method, this will be your inside of your sweater. However, if you use yarn needle, you're not going to have this big what's the word, bump. I like to use yarn needle because the seams just become invisible if you don't have the yarn needle. So this is the method you would use. Okay, but so this is the other method. This is the one method. The other one is I'm gonna leave long enough tail I'm gonna cut the yarn and then fasten off. Oh, it's so fuzzy. So I'm gonna fasten off, bring out my yarn needle and put through the eye, align my stitches side by side, and use the method we used for seaming the panels together, the sleeves to the panels, and then go all the way up. Okay, so work on this until you get here. Once you finish, you close up the sides, then you weave in the ends, cut any loose ends. We are moving on to the last part of our tutorial. We are going to make a kangaroo pocket. So it's that pocket that we're going to seam in front of our sweater. So we are starting at the top and then increase until we reach certain number of stitches, and then from there we go all the way. So at the top we're gonna have 6.3 inches or 16 centimeters, and for me it's 22 inches. Okay, and then at the bottom we should have 27 centimeters wide or 9.8 inches, and that should be 34 inches after I do all the increases. So we are starting over here. We're going to be adding 2 stitches every other row until we reach row 30, until we reach 34 stitches. And from top to bottom it should be 18 centimeters or 7 inches. And after calculating, I need 18 rows in total. This is same for all the sizes, but if you wanted to adjust your pocket, you are welcome to do so. We are using a 6mm hook for our pocket, and I'm going to start with a slip knot and make 22 foundation half double crochet stitches. That's stitch 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to do this until I have 22. I got my 22 stitches, so this is considered row 1. Okay, I'm gonna chain 2 and 10, and the first stitch you're gonna make 2 half double crochet stitches. Okay, and then just a normal half double crochet until we reach the last stitch, and we're gonna make 2 stitches on the last one. We are increasing on every other row, or let me just say you are increasing on even numbers row. So this is row 2, you are increasing. When we get to row 3, you are not increasing anything. You're just gonna work on This is the end of row 3. Moving on to row 4. Row 4, we are increasing. So we're going to chain 2 and make, this does not count as a stitch. So you're going to make 2 half double crochet on the first stitch, and then 1 stitch across until you reach the end, and then you make 2 stitches. So you had 24 here. After this you should have 26, and you are going to repeat these 2 rows until you have 34 stitches across. Okay, we will meet after we are done with our increases, when I have my 34 stitches and you have yours as well. I have my 34 stitches across. From here on we are just gonna work the 34 stitches, so we're gonna have more like a rectangle instead of the pocket slanting, until my pocket is about 7 inches. So far I have 4 inches, so I've got 3 more inches to go of just the rectangle. Okay, after this, from this row on, no increases. Chain 2 and make a half double crochet across on each stitch, and you are going to repeat this row until you have your desired depth of the pocket. Okay, the pocket is done. I'm gonna fasten off. Okay, leave a long enough tail that will seam the pocket to the panel. So I'm just gonna double up the length of the I've doubled up the length of the yarn and cut, and then fasten off. It is time to seam our pocket onto the front panel. Okay, so I counted 1 2 3 4 5 6 rows from the bottom ribbing, and tried and put my pocket right in the middle. Measuring on either side, I have close to 5 inches on each, 5 inches on each side. Okay, so try and put your pocket right in the middle, and make sure you have equal measurement on each side, or really close measurements on each side. I have my yarn needle here. We're gonna seam our pocket onto the front panel. Now this is laying flat. We have the back and the bottom, so make sure you lift your sweater so you only seam on the front panel. And I am using the same method that I used on all other seams on this sweater, or you can do what works best for you. Okay. So I'm going to go here at the bottom. If I still have long enough tail, I'm gonna go all the way up to this edge, this straight edge. Okay, and then after that I'll add another yarn seam on this side. Okay, I have done the bottom of the pocket. Now I am going to do the side. I still have a long enough tail to do the side. Remember to lift the panel off so you don't sew your pocket to both panels. All right, here I'm going to double up the last seam so the corner is secure, and then I'm just gonna weave in the ends. I'm gonna go back and forth just to make sure the yarn is well secure. Okay, so I'm gonna do the same thing on this side and then the top. I'm just gonna use this tail and make a knot just to secure the edges nicely. And then I've got lots of ends to weave. Weave in all the ends and enjoy your new sweater. I hope you had fun making this. Even though the stitches don't seem visible, this yarn, you can, like, with your own eyes, you can see where the stitches are. Don't forget to share this tutorial with your friends and family. And if you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button so that you get all the notifications when I upload new tutorials. We'll meet in the next one.